Hey Gearheads, and welcome to Garage Talk, a discussion about all things automotive. I'm Cory.
And I'm Matt. And each week this podcast will serve as a catalyst for discussion on all sorts of topics that grind our gears, rev our engines, or just need a bit more conversation.
And Matt, this week we didn't have many gears to grind or engines to rev yet again.
You roped me into another EV conversation.
But it was a good one,
It was a good conversation. It was a great conversation.
Oh my goodness. We are incredibly grateful to this week's guests in Mercedes Lilienthal and Emily Winslow. Just stellar people. And we got to dig into their brains and their experience in the 2021 Rebelle Rally.
Yeah.
And I especially had a lot of fun with this one, digging into the random misfire at the end. It was a fun conversation.
It was.
All the way around. I don't know that I want to spoil too much. Maybe we just jump right in.
Let's do it.
All right. So we are just beyond thrilled to have Mercedes and Emily join us to talk about their experience at the 2021 Rebelle Rally. Very nice to have y'all.
Thank you so much for having us on the show.
We're so excited to be here.
So before we dig into all things Rebelle, we're going to dig into all things Mercedes and Emily just a little bit. Mercedes, we'll start with you. You and I got connected through Facebook. You and I run in a lot of similar circles, but have prior to now not actually met. So hello, very nice to actually meet you. And
it's great to meet you over the screen and over radio waves.
Right. Maybe one of these days at some media event, it will be in person. But why don't you give our listening audience maybe a quick synopsis of what got you here, how you got from, I don't want to say birth, but like what got you into the automotive culture, and how did your story end up where now we're speaking 2021 Rebelle Rally?
Oh gosh, how many hours do you have? Actually, that's totally a joke. That's a joke. So long story, pretty short. I've always been into cars. I've always loved different kinds of vehicles. Was mainly in the lowrider and tuner crowd, imports, things like that. From my early age on, all the way through high school and college. And then met my husband at the time. We met actually in Minneapolis with two different friends of ours that lived several hours away. And basically, he was my ride to go to the Hot Import Nights car show in Chicago. And then we, several years later, moved to Portland, Oregon, where he started a job in Warren Industries, which is a truck winch manufacturer, OE parts, hubs, all that type of thing, aftermarket bumpers, things like that. And we basically said, well, gosh, we need to buy a 4x4. We need to learn this type of people. And I don't want to say this type of people, but it's not a segment that we were used to. So, right. So then that was in 2006. We both moved out here from the Midwest, originally from Wisconsin. My parents immigrated from Germany. And I said, you know what? I just started planning all of my vacation time around all these different overlanding and off-roading events, and going to Moab and going to Ouray in Colorado and doing the trails up at 13,000 feet and going, God, this is so cool. And
yes.
These people are so passionate. And in 2018, I basically decided to switch gears, pun intended, switch gears and transitioned from my commercial interior design and project management career of almost 20 years into full-time freelance. Okay. So I put my passion and my hobby and my lust for all things cars and adventure and travel into a full-time mode, and basically have been writing for a whole bunch of different automotive outlets and doing PR and marketing efforts for various automotive companies as well.
Awesome.
Yeah. Being virtual friends with you and seeing all that you've got your hands in, I'm like, wow, she is, one, very busy, two, very talented, and just to know that you've been doing it essentially full-time for, what is that, 5 years now? I can't math. Two
a
plus,
couple years, yeah, a little under 4.
Yeah, so there we go. Yeah, on the fly math. There, yeah.
Well, you turn 35 and your math goes out the window?
Yeah.
I got to pick on him when I get a chance.
I didn't spend 12 years as a corporate analyst or anything. No. So, yeah, I'm very calculator dependent. I'll just put it that way. So, wow. Very awesome. I'm sure we will dig into a little bit more of that as we go. But we'll pivot a little bit to Emily. What got you here and involved, and how did our paths cross, so to speak?
Hi. Great question. So I'm the opposite. I'm not super into cars. I never have been. I love math. I love orienteering, which is like hiking with maps and finding points. And my family is very outdoorsy. We're from the Pacific Northwest. And I have a lifelong best friend named Alicia. We've met in kindergarten. And a couple years ago, she called me and said, "Hey, I saw this thing online called the Rebelle Rally. Do you want to get dinner and talk about it?" So I was like, "Oh, sure," and I'm kind of always up for an adventure. I just say yes to anything. Let's try it. So we went to dinner, and she was kind of telling me what it was. And it was right when they had first done the first year. She had watched it online. And so she was kind of trying to explain it to me. And I was like, wouldn't that be really funny if we could reference this dinner as like the day it all started? And we're like, ha, 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 ha. And then fast forward, I needed a new car. And I was like, well, there's an all-wheel drive X-Cross class. Maybe I get an all-wheel drive car that we could take on the rally. And then it kind of went from there. We're both, we've only driven stick shifts. We love outdoors, but we've never really off-roaded or anything. But we thought, well, why not? Emily Miller says anybody could do it. So I don't know. So we went to a training out in the desert in California. And I just fell in love with the map, compass, rulers, no electronics of it all. And Alicia loved the driving. So we kind of formed a pair. And then her and I have competed twice together. And then we kind of took some years off, and out of the blue, Mercedes messaged me and said, "Hey, weren't you the navigator?" I was like, yeah, I remember you. And she's like, "Hey, can I call you?" And then, 2 months later, we were on the Rebelle this year. So that's kind of how I got there.
Your third go round with Rebelle?
Yes.
Wow. Yeah. So that's awesome. I'm jealous and very cool. Yeah. Your story is very similar to, so in a previous episode, we interviewed Amy Lerner and talked about her Dakar run, and her navigator was like plucked out of the blue, essentially, that she knew nothing of what the Dakar was. She knew nothing of any, but jumped right in, and they had a blast as well. So that's really cool to hear how these two worlds collide, so to speak.
Yeah, it's always worth it to just say yes.
I like that.
You got it. That is words worth living by.
Yes.
So as we kind of pivot to talk about the Rebelle and your experience at it, for those who have not been listening to previous podcast episodes of ours, last week we had the joy and the privilege to talk to the ladies from Team Mitsubishi, and Mason and Aaron, and they gave us a quick little rundown of exactly what the Rebelle is and what it is not. And what it is not is a race. But why don't y'all just kind of dig in, hit the high points for anyone who may not be familiar with exactly what the Rebelle is. I know, Emily, you've kind of touched on it a little already.
Yeah. You want to go, Mercedes, or you want me to talk about it?
Oh, sure. I may or may not have my notes ready.
True professional.
You kind of have to have your journal pad of everything. So,
right.
So basically, yes. So the Rebelle Rally is founded and owned and run by Emily Miller, and now up to 113 total people as far as staff that she has. It's in its 6th year. It is the longest running rally, or not longest running, longest mileage wise rally in the United States. And it's all women. So it's a very unique rally in the fact that it is not a race. They are totally right. Team Mitsu, go Team Mitsu. But it is more of a rally of traditional navigational purposes. So map and compass, topographic, maps, and then a plotter as well, and pencils, literally. There's no cell phones, no laptops, no iPads, no GPS. They will quarantine you and literally like cut you out and send you back home the second that they realize that you have any of that stuff on hand. So it's all old school stuff. So Emily's just been absolutely fantastic as far as a navigator. And this year's been the biggest ever. Even though we're still kind of, reeling from COVID and all that type of stuff, they were very, very thoughtful as far as having pre-COVID tests, COVID tests while we were there, making sure everybody was negative, who was vaccinated, showing proof of everything, and masking up when we were in close quarters. So hats off to Emily and the team for first off doing that, because that keeps everybody safe.
Right.
That being said, is we had 52 teams. There was 104 total team players. There were 17 original people and 53 returning. Wow. There have been 8 total competitors that did all 6 years. Let me repeat that. 8 total competitors that have done all 6 years.
Wow.
And one of them was the EV. The other full EV was a Rivian of Rebecca Donaghy and also Emmy Hall.
Okay.
That being said, is this year with the 52 teams, there was 92 cities, 24 states and provinces, 5 countries that all took part.
Yes.
Partake. I don't know. I still
Partook.
have like Bob Rally brain here.
Yeah.
Took part. How about that?
So, yes, we're again just reiterating how jealous we are of just the experience alone. Sounds amazing. What got you tied up with Team VW?
So, Team VW. So Volkswagen had wanted to reach out to a journalist that could drive. That was kind of the original intention. They have a very special, very unique, and very important, pivotal vehicle to their lineup, and that is the all-electric, all-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive ID.4. And they wanted to run it in the rally. And so all the planets aligned, and because of just great timing and the opportunity to be open, and a dear friend, Sue Mead of mine, who is also a Dakar champion that you guys may know, they ended up talking to me, and I said, you know what, I have the time. I was planning on being there as media, obviously as a journalist. I covered in person in 2019 after I competed in 2018 and then remotely in 2020. And they said, yeah, let's give it a go and let's find a navigator. And so then I messaged Emily promptly thereafter and said, well, hey, how crazy? First off, how are you? Second off, how crazy do you want to be? Third off, there is a really unique and challenging and experiential opportunity that we have to run an all-electric SUV, so 5-seater car, right? So 5-door, 5-passenger car that's not normally known as an off-roader. But to test it out and say, you know what, we are going to go over 1,400 miles of crazy terrain in the Nevada and the California deserts and end up in the sand dunes of Glamis. You want to do it? Of course, she just said, hey, I can't say no to any opportunity, especially if it's adventure related. And so she said, yeah. So, here we are.
That's awesome. Yeah, it blew me away. And I had no idea that the ID.4 that Volkswagen was running in Rebelle as well. But I saw Tanner Faust on Facebook running the same car in Baja, and dumbfounded that it would even consider competing in an event like that, and it did incredibly well.
So
it did.
Yeah.
I think hats off to many players, and I think Volkswagen Corporate of America, of course. I think being able to say, you know what, let's do this. Let's hope we finish. The goal is to finish, and to finish strong and under our own power, and everything else is gravy, right? I keep saying that is everything else is just bonus. And for Tanner Faust to be able to commandeer the rear-wheel drive variant that was set up by Reese Millen Racing, by the way. So they do huge, Baja trophy trucks for, Nora, for Baja 1000, for all sorts of stuff. So they set up that vehicle, and under Tanner Faust's expertise, my gosh, I don't know what he hasn't rallied and been successful at. I mean, my God, he could probably do Tonka trucks and kick butt. Sorry, but compared to anybody else. But to have that winning combination and to have them do the rear wheel drive variant for Nora was so cool to see, and have it finish and finish strong. And then for them to say, okay, the all wheel drive variant of it. Literally, I was on the press launch in Chattanooga in mid-September, and they said, okay, let's truck one of those actual vehicles back all the way to the West Coast to Reese Millen Racing, set that puppy up. It took less than 2 weeks. We got it wrapped. And by the awesome one, her Instagram handle is Liz Kuz. She's so many people ask about the vehicle wrap, but got it wrapped and got it ready to go. And literally, we were driving down when the press release went out to say, yes, we're going to do the rally, and we're doing it in an all-wheel drive vehicle that just literally was released less than a month earlier by the time we were driving to tech inspection.
That's incredible.
So many questions about the vehicle. So for our fans that have followed us for any length of time, I have very recently, and I am still jet lagged from the experience, road tripped a Mustang Mach-E on a 1,200 mile round trip through Texas and some of Oklahoma, and I am still recouping from that. So trying to wrap my head around the environment, the grueling nature of the Rebelle in a pure EV. Speak just a little bit to how the ID.4 performed for y'all and the added challenge of keeping an eye on that range and just managing that along with everything else.
Emily, do you want to start with that since you were the master navigator on keeping me on point for range?
Sure. Yeah, I've never really driven an electric car until they loaned us one for a couple of days ahead so we could kind of measure it. So to me, it was a completely new experience. I have done the X-Cross class twice before, so I kind of had the idea of, a low car, stock height, it's not 4x4. It runs pretty much the same course, so you have to just do a lot slower usually and be really precise and methodical. You can't just, hit the gas and go over all the rocks. You got to really do it slow. So I was used to that. But as a navigator, I am used to making mistakes, a lot of mistakes on purpose, right? Like I'm going to get you there, but I have 4 different ways to do it. And I'm not quite sure which way, but we'll figure out when we get there and start taking headings. And it was a little different. First of all, that little battery icon that goes down as your miles go away. That's terrifying.
Yeah.
So having that and knowing that I'm not used to, how the batteries work, how many kilometers does this take? The first couple of days were tough for me mentally. Usually I'm like, let's do all the points until we can't get there. Let's do everything. And this time it was quickly turned into, what can we get to? What the car could handle the terrain. That wasn't ever the question. It was, what kind of battery do we have? How many kilometers is that thing? Which ones do we have to get? Which ones do I have to throw away? And it was a lot of, because we were newer to the car, the terrain eats the battery. How does that happen? Is it a lot of battery for this terrain? Is it not a lot of battery and regenerating for this terrain? So keeping my eyes on that, while Mercedes was focused on driving, because I want her focused on that, right? I don't need her worrying about numbers. Mm-hmm. I love numbers. So I was constantly updating her. Yep. Constantly updating her like, hey, that train you just did, that ate, 3 kilometers to one that you drove. So just keep that in mind and then readjusting. Well, maybe we can't get to that checkpoint because I know the train is similar to this so it was definitely different. So I had to shift to do math, which I love. So it ended up being really fun. And just the goal was don't let the battery die. Don't get towed in. And so, it was interesting.
And I think for me as a driver, I've driven my fair share of EVs, but not really off road. I mean, the only other opportunity I had is when we had a Jeep loan for review for publications. It was a 4xe, so we went all the way out to a state forest that's not too far away from us here, and then when we just drove that, and I think it's lower 20s. I want to say maybe 21 miles of range, something similar to that. And we drove that all, and it was in 4-low, and it was, it had just rained. So it was kind of muddy and rocky, and there was a bunch of stumps because it's, in Oregon. I live in Oregon, so Pacific Northwest is very similar to Washington, where Emily lives, and there's lots of pine trees and lots of stuff, and so it's a completely different experience. And so I realized that when it said we had 1% battery left, we had 9 miles. So I went, oh, okay. So it's not 20 some miles. It's literally 9 miles and 4-low. I mean, that was my only experience I had off-roading a full EV. Well, not a full, that was a plug-in hybrid, electric hybrid, but at least the opportunity to drive something off the beaten path in full EV mode, whether it's a full EV or a plug-in electric hybrid. To test to Emily, we had the rear wheel drive variant for a little while. They let us kind of, as she was mentioning, measuring, well, we kind of did a yard dump of all of our gear, right? She came down from near Seattle, and I live in Portland, and she had all of her totes and said, okay, let's measure it out. Let's figure out what we can put here and this and that. And knowing that we weren't probably going to see the vehicle until the day we started driving it, we needed to make sure all of our gear could fit in it. So, people like, for instance, with other rallies or races or things like that, maybe down in Baja, they might have a chase vehicle. They might have a hotel that they stay at night, or they might be camping or something. But a lot of times they don't have to bring in all their gear. We literally have to be a turtle and have our home on our back the whole entire time. So not only did we have, 5 gallons of water with us, we had, a full-on Pro Eagle jack on skids. We had fire extinguishers. We had our tent and our sleeping bags and our this and that, and then extra food and, all sorts of stuff. Our normal clothes, because we switched base camps multiple times. Right. So when we test fit all of that, we said, okay, we've got on-road opportunity, but with off-road, how is that going to work? And so to Emily's testament, I mean, she was such a fantastic navigator that she just was able to go like that and switch into mode of saying, oh, okay, so they gave us a note of where the coordinates of where the charge truck will be. There was a remote semi truck that was powered by Renewable Innovations. So that truck, where is it and where are we starting? So we got coordinates, and so we had to basically plot all of those every single day. And she plot what she thought was a good way that was different than the rally wants you to go, because they want you to go in a certain order, right? So green checkpoints, blue and black checkpoints. So it's all about points, right? So you get all these hidden checkpoints, and the people with the most checkpoints in their class wins. We were unique in the fact that the green were mandatory. You have to get them all in order, but we can't do a lot of the other ones because we just didn't have the range that we were finding out. So we were faced with a range game within a rally game, right? So we had like a completely different dynamic of, oh crap, we need to get to the charge truck. We've got 6% left, and I don't know what the train's going to look like. It looks okay on the topo map, but are we going to be in, going 2 miles an hour, over rocky stuff, even though it looks flat on a map? It could be really crazy. So, hats off to her for an exceptional navigating job and keeping me on point and letting me understand what I just did for how many kilometers of range it ate up compared to what it was actual. So, we realized in the toughest terrain that was actually really rocky, off camber, really tight situations where the vehicle probably wouldn't ever want to go, but it did great. I mean, we had Yokohama Geolander ATs, all-terrain tires on it, and just with careful tire placement and the time and taking the vehicle into B mode, which is their braking mode, it was almost like 4 low. And I loved that day on day one where we thought we could do a mountain pass, and then we realized we couldn't because it was going to get a lot more tougher up at the top. We didn't realize it and had to turn back. But that being said, we realized, oh, okay, so that time, even though we walked a lot of course, she threw a lot of rocks out of the way because we were only 6.7 inches. And then again, mind you, we've got a Kevlar skid plate underneath it, but the skid plate probably ate up maybe another, half inch. So we were 6 point whatever inches, the lowest, I think, by far that was in the rally, but we were stock height. So she had to throw rocks. But then we realized during that point, I think that was the toughest terrain, Emily, right? Where I think we estimated about 4 kilometers of usage of range based on one actually traveled.
Wow.
So if you think about that, if we have 200 and some kilometers, because we run the rally in kilometers, if you have 200 and some kilometers, you have to go. And then all of a sudden you're running a 10 kilometer course, and you just ate up a quarter of your battery because you're like, oh, it's 4-to-1 ratio.
Yeah.
Now you're starting to kind of understand the whole dynamic of, okay, this is EV, even though we're on the forefront of this technology and off-roading. Who off-roads an EV? It's like a, total cosmic type of, something that people wouldn't think would happen, but it's starting to happen. And that's what's so cool. And I appreciate the fact that Volkswagen partnered with Emily and me to do this because they wanted to see what the vehicle could do. And it was our job to get it there in the finish line. And we did that. And we did even that much more.
That's awesome.
Yeah, my brain's just hurting hearing y'all. The mental, just the mind game that adding that extra complexity that only one other team had to deal with. just speaks to the mental grit that you had to carry with you into the rally. So I can't do it right now because my headphones would go with it. But hats off to both of you for figuring that all out on the fly. Emily, you said you love numbers, so this was like probably right up your alley. And the challenge that you probably didn't know you had accepted, but I know, just speaking from my experience watching, I got down to, I believe it was 3% battery with 8 miles of range to go around midnight, wondering if I was going to make it to the next charging station. So range anxiety is real on the road. I can't imagine competing in a rally dealing with all of that.
Well, and I'm thinking about that too, going, okay, yeah, for an ICE vehicle, you could carry an extra 30, 40, 50 gallons worth of fuel with you. And, you know, if you come to a section that's supposed to be 10 kilometers and you eat 40 kilometers worth of fuel, well, you just pull a can off the side of it and fill the tank up and you keep going. You don't get to do that when you're on the side of what's left of a road 50 miles from anything trying to charge up an EV. Yeah, hats off to the three of you, because yeah, the challenges of an EV are far beyond what I care to mess with at this point.
I would say,
no, go ahead, Emily.
I would say the first 2 times that I rallied with Alicia, we quickly found during the Rebelle, you know, normally in life, you can quit. You can give up. Someone will save you. Any number of those things can happen. In the Rebelle, you can't. Like, we got ourselves in some weird situations in years past, and you have to get out. You can't just, you know, start crying or yelling and say like, well, someone's going to come fix it. Literally, no one's going to come fix it. I mean, of course, there's the rescue guys, but they may not even be able to get the truck in wherever you've gotten yourself. You know, like, there is no quitting, and you can yell that you quit in the middle of the desert, but then you have to get back in the car and get it out of there, you know? So I think that was the biggest thing I had learned in the first 2 years, that, yeah, have whatever emotion you need at the moment, but then like get it back on and find your way out. And so this year, especially with that, it was even more specific to me that like, there is literally no one that can come and help us if we let this battery die. Like, like you said, at least we could have 5 gallons of gas, but there's nothing, and there's no one coming to save you. So, you know, buck up and figure it out. So I think that's one of the huge things I've learned that I've taken in life from the Rebelle. Just like, sometimes you can't quit. You just have to figure it out.
That's awesome.
Well, and attest to the rally, there is no fuel allowed, like jerry cans or things like that. There is absolutely no fuel allowed for anybody. Really? So ICE vehicles, like internal combustion engine vehicles or EVs or anything, that is not allowed. So it's different in that fact. That being said, is, you know, yes, if you run out of fuel, yes, you can call on your sat phone, because we all have mandatory sat phones, and they will bring you fuel. You will get heavily penalized for it, but they can bring you fuel.
Right.
They cannot bring a jerry can of fuel for an all EV vehicle. They can't really bring the huge semi that is there, powered by renewable innovations, and drag it all the way across to where we ended up getting ourselves stuck in the dunes or wherever it may be. So, you know, I think, to attest to Emily's comments is you have to be willing to kind of roll with the punches, right? Totally fly by the seat of your pants and say, you know what, just allow yourself the opportunity of humility, of empathy. If somebody else is saying, okay, because there were times where she was, you know, getting frustrated, saying, okay, we need to recalibrate, pun intended, but like recalibrate our thoughts and range. And me being like, okay, I know I can do this, but I don't have the range to do this. And we have to forego checkpoints because it's all a learning experiment. Right. So I think for us, we worked so well dynamically as a team, consistently having all of those different types of things thrown at us. And, you know, I knew them, you know, back in 2018, I competed as a fellow manual transmission competitor. At the time I drove a stick shift. It was actually a Toyota Tacoma Access Cab truck. So, and I'm not used to a truck. I'm used to right-hand drive 4x4ing. So we've got 3 Mitsubishis sitting at home. So I'm all over the place with my vehicles. But so we kind of united over that, though. It's like, oh, stick shift love, manual vehicles forever, that kind of thing. And And so in 2019, when they competed the second year, she podiumed, yay, she podiumed in second place in 2018. Novice year, I just kicked butt for them. But with her teammate Alicia, but in 2019, they had some mechanical issues with the clutch. But when I sat there and it was dusk and they literally had the clutch all torn apart and they were replacing it. And the mechanics were just, hats off and total love for the mechanics, Nick and his team. And everybody.
On a big, just a sheet of, plastic. Incredible.
They were replacing the clutch, but you know what? Alicia and her were there and they were in good spirits despite that fact. And I will never forget that. And that's one of the reasons why I reached out to her and said, hey, you know what? I remember you from back then because A, you kicked ass. But sorry, that's a word. But but B, you had that opportunity to say, you know what, things will be okay. Like they have a catastrophic failure in Glamis, and they're literally rebuilding or actually replacing the whole entire clutch during competition, mind you. Right. And they still had smiles on their faces. And for us to be able to pair up with VW and make that all happen, and Tanner Faust and Reese Millen and everybody, that's just really, really cool. And especially to be able to bring it home and drive it home and finish well. I mean, for us, it's icing on the cake.
Yeah, it's awesome. So I have two questions. One is a quick one. How did the Rivian team do in the process? Were they kind of along with you guys? Was there some camaraderie there being both EV?
Emily?
Yeah, they first they're such fun ladies. So we had a lot of fun. We would meet them usually midday at the midday charging point. We'd kind of, pass each other. And I just love hearing Emmy, the driver, is incredible, like insane in the best way, right? And so I love I love them. And so I love hearing, like, what have you guys done today? What did you do with that car? And then it was kind of like, what battery percent are you at? We're at this, so it was very fun they were in a different class. So there wasn't even the feel of the competition. It was just the feel of like, yes, every time they drive by, we're honking and like, you guys are making it out here. We're making it out here. It was very cool to have it's just somebody by your side that knows your pains and your excitement better than the other competitors. So it was really fun.
That's cool.
Yeah. And I think Emmy and Rebecca, they are part of the 8 people that have done it every single solitary year. And they've been with each other every single solitary year.
That's amazing.
So no matter whether it's Jeep or Rolls-Royce Cullinan that they did 2 years ago, or the Rivian now that they did 2 years straight in a row now. Last year, especially, they had the exact same experience we had in the fact that, oh, what the F are we getting ourselves into? Because nobody's ever done it before. And the whole range game. And I asked them a little bit. I talked to Emmy as a driver. I said, hey, Emmy, this is so crazy. This is like so different than what we're used to thinking, and the miles and the range and the this and the that. And then she's like, oh, yeah. I mean, last year, the Rivian R1T truck did great. But they had a prototype battery. It wasn't in full production yet. Right. This year, I believe the R1T truck is now being delivered to people to actually to customers. So I believe it is full production, that what they have now this year, but it's still that same type of thing. It's like, the Rivian itself has been tested for kind of severe duty travels, off-road and maybe cold and maybe hot and this and that. It's a 4x4. It's meant to be, that type of vehicle, not necessarily what has been dubbed a cute, low little car like we have had with the ID.4. But it's a cute little car that has possibly could have done this, and it really definitely did. Yeah. And so for us, they always checked in on us. Hey, how are you guys doing? We'd always wave and we'd always honk, and it was such positive reinforcement. And they're nothing but dynamite team.
Cool. So very cool.
Jumping in, hold your thought on your second question, because I want to segue. You hinted at the modifications that were made to your ID.4 for this journey, and it was essentially wheels, tires, and Kevlar skid plate. And that was it?
A little. There was barely, there was that and not much more, honestly. They wanted to keep the stock everything as much as they could. So the driving dynamics, the drivetrain, nothing was messed with the all-wheel drive system. The height was even stock. Everything else was stock because it's been tested so much by the engineers, they wanted to see what it could do. Yeah. So Reese Millen Racing did the Kevlar and aluminum skid plates. It was pretty much a full skid underneath. They moved up and back the radiator, and I believe it was an aluminum radiator, up and back to increase the approach angle of that vehicle, and then also have a small tube steel bumper that was bolted to the vehicle. It was a welded bumper frame, and it was bolted to the vehicle to just kind of reinforce that front part. And then, Yokohama Geolandar all-terrain tires. There were OZ wheels, so they were 18-inch wheels versus either the 19 or 20-inch variants that are stock, depending on what option you buy. But the tire size combination with those wheels and tires of the Yokohamas equaled out to be pretty identical to what an OE factory size would be. So we didn't have to recalibrate the odometer, speedometer, that type of thing. And of course, that's really important to traditional navigation.
Exactly.
Needed to make sure we were like spot on navigation and getting there in the 0.0 whatever percentage it is that you need to for Odo that we're there. Let me see what else. Interior wise, there was just interior bracing to allow for a 5-gallon water container, fire extinguishers, and a Pro Eagle full-size jack that was on a skid plate. So that it was just nice and easy to just be able to put underneath on sand or uneven stuff. They skidded it, which was perfect, so we never needed it.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. No tire punctures, no tire issues, no mechanical, no battery. We always said slow is pro or slow is steady. And, sometimes it killed us because we couldn't get all the checkpoints we wanted to get. But, the biggest goal is this isn't an exhibition rally, right? For us, we were in it to do as best as we could. We came in 8th out of 10th place. Even to finish for any of these teams, even to get to the starting line for any of these teams is such a huge win. And my hat's off to everybody, every woman that's done it, every husband, every mother, daughter, every kid, family, friends, support network behind these women. Yeah. That's a champion, and those are winners right there, no matter what happens. If you break an axle, if you bust both rear shocks on a TSD that was a little bit too fast, as some people have done, all that type of thing. It's all part of it. It's all part of the learning experience to help you adjust for the future.
Yeah. I love that. Well, that segues actually well into what I was going to ask. My second question was how involved – I realize once you start the race, it's just the two of you. But how involved was Volkswagen in the process of wanting to keep up with the data on how well the car was doing, how the battery's performing, it's keeping cool, all those types of things? Like how was there a time when the engineers wanted to come in and take a look at the car to see how well it was doing, or did they have to wait until the end to go back over everything?
Well, that's a really good question. So for the rally, it is not a race, actually. It's at or below speed limit signs. And so for the rally itself, is they did fly in an engineer to be there just on staff. They were general mechanical help. So they helped everybody because everybody just helps everybody. That's just how it is. Right. Whether you're a teammate or you're, a mechanical staff or an engineer for Rivian or for us or whoever. So they were mainly there in case there was a catastrophic failure, like a software failure or something like that. So they had Nils come in for the first half of it, and then another gentleman come in at the latter half. So, but they were hands off in case we needed any help or anything. That would be penalty. So that would be, I think that would consider that outside assistance. But they were basically there, and just, we had a chance to just say hi, everything's great. I mean, we could talk to them. It wasn't like if you say hi, you're penalized type of thing. But with Rivian, they had a larger staff there as well, but they had to support Rivian, and they had another vehicle. But I think a lot of them were just, staffed to help with the rally. So there was, since it is such a forefront of technology and such newness in the off-roading world, to have all electrics be a part of it, there was support if needed, but it wasn't, it wasn't required, but it wasn't needed, so to speak, at least on our end from the ID.4.
Cool. Very cool.
Unfortunately, I do believe we've gotten to the part where we get to pivot into the more fun questions. I feel like we're just scratching the surface on your experience. We'll throw out one more question because both of y'all are returning Rebels, and you mentioned the teams of 8 individuals that have done every single rally to date. What was your defining moment of the 2021 Rebelle for each of y'all. I know last week we talked a little bit about a sandstorm, so I don't know if that's anything y'all had similar experiences with, but I'll let y'all.
Oh, Emily, do you want to go first with that one? That's a great question.
I'm thinking.
Pivotal question. I know. It's like, it takes a lot to shut us up. Wow.
Yes.
Gosh, if Emily, if you're still thinking, for me, if somebody asks that, I guess, yes, there is totally the dust and sandstorm that was crazy. And we slept in the ID.4 and it's very, very quiet. That's totally aside from like the pivotal moment for us, and leaning into whatever challenge that we decided to face. But I think for me, it was so important, and I'm so humbled and honored to have been part of an opportunity like this, especially with the Volkswagen, because I'm dual citizen, German-American. My parents immigrated from Germany. I've owned Volkswagens, as a kid, a little rabbit, that I learned how to drive on, also stick shift, and a teal-colored Jetta that I loved and I had in college, also stick shift. You can see a pattern right here in between Emily and me, right? But I think for me to be on the forefront in motorsports in such a fashion, especially when it comes to alternative energy. I mean, I foresee electric. Obviously, electric's finally getting a huge, shout out, and a lot of people are finally jumping on the electric bandwagon, as they should. But obviously, we need to make sure that there are charging stations everywhere, that the infrastructure is there to be able to handle it. But there's also other alternatives. I mean, there's hydrogen power, there's algae power, there's all sorts of different crazy things that are out there. But to be in the forefront of some part of that in a dynamic way, and to see what a vehicle could do, especially one that's an unconventional off-roader.
Right.
Yeah.
I think to me that was such a critically awesome experience, and to be able to do my best as a driver to get the vehicle through the finish line and place it as it is, 8th out of 10th. I think that's just a huge test of the vehicle's capability, the manufacturer who made the vehicle, all the parts companies that went into, supply those parts for it, but also the navigator to make sure that I can get to an area that I can drive, and a driver to be able to place the tires correctly and drive it in a dynamically safe way and conservative way to get back there with range and not needing power in the middle of somewhere because they needed a tow back, because we've never needed it. So
Awesome.
I think that's it for me in a kind of a long answer.
I think there were kind of two for me. One was day one when we were on that, I was throwing rocks for like an hour. We were going up this ridge this thing that I thought we could get through because the map looked okay. And, maps lie sometimes. And at that point, as I'm like chucking these rocks, and Mercedes, she's an incredible driver. She knows the speed. She doesn't go nuts. She knows where to place things. She kept me safe and really comfortable the whole time. But in the middle of just throwing those rocks and being out there, I finally had to give up. I wanted to win. I want to win. I want to do so good. And everybody before that just kept saying, we want the car to finish. We just want it to finish. And I was like, yeah. But I'm going to win. And so, to go up against those other ladies is you just want to see what you can do. And so day one, I just had to kind of give up the ego, give it up and say, like, listen, this is what you're here for. Let's see what this car can do, and kind of shift my brain. So I think that was big for me, because then I could kind of get into the spirit of Mercedes. I think had that mindset a little more than I had. So that was good. So I wouldn't be frustrated all week. And then later in the week, it was like the end of day 6, we'd had a pretty rough day for just situations. And we got to Glamis in the dark, and there was a TSD for navigation that I really wanted to do because that's what I do, and it was very precise. And we started it in the dark, and they said that was fine. And we got kind of stuck. The only time we ever got stuck, we got high centered. And, Mercedes was being very gentle with the car and trying to make sure she didn't break it. It was her job. And so she's so good at recovery, and these ladies helped us out and got us out, and it was totally fine. Everyone was safe. But to me, like I said, I'm not a car girl. I don't love that stuff. I like the numbers. And so we got back in the car, and Mercedes was like, okay, are you okay? And I just started crying, which is in my head embarrassing and not tough. And these ladies are tough. And what are we doing? And she was such a sweet teammate. Her and I don't know each other really. And just checking on me. And so then my mindset having to turn to be like, it's okay that things are scary out here.
Yeah.
This terrain is scary. It's claustrophobic sometimes when you're in the dunes, which seems very opposite, but you're the only people out there. You can't see anything else. There may be no way out.
Right.
We're stuck on a crazy path where you have to build a 5-foot max tracks bridge to get out of there, like things like that. I don't love it. I just want to find the checkpoints. So it was just really cool to have a woman that I don't know very well being open enough to be okay with knowing that I wasn't okay, giving me a minute. We got over it. I took a deep breath and then we continued on, and just the power in not thinking that was weak, and just the power of, I think, just ladies. The Rebelle always brings me back to tough ladies, and tough ladies cry, or they yell, or they cuss, or they like pink, or they wear black all day. Like, it doesn't matter. Right. Tough ladies are tough ladies. And it was, both of those really were tough for me. So, yeah.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
That's
right?
it.
So
that's awesome.
Much love to you, Emily. Much love.
Sounds like y'all made an amazing team and forged a bond that will not be quickly forgotten. So that is awesome. Well, now we will shift gears into our closing segment. A
little more fun.
Right.
Although the premise of this segment, it's called Random Misfire. And, the dreaded code that check engine light, PO300, random misfire. You never know which one it is, right? The problem with this is talking with y'all after having run the entire race in an EV. There's no cylinders to misfire. So if there were cylinders, there would be 8 of them.
Yes, there should be.
There should be. Anyway, the whole premise has fallen apart.
No, I was going to say, we've had our fair share, Andy and myself, my husband, who also works in the industry and also is a writer. Mm-hmm. He and I have had our fair share of OBD 1 or 2 or whatever, check engine like code things where you have to plug in the stupid thing and like get the reader what it is. I may or may not have done that very recently.
Yeah. Count the blinks and I'm with you.
Very familiar. So yes, if it's a check engine light and it ends up being an emissions control thing, or it's a whatever the heck it is, I'm very well familiar. So
all right,
we can indoctrinate that into the segment.
Okay. There we go. Perfect. So we'll split this up. Typically we do 8 of them, and so I'll ask Emily 4 questions. Cory, you can ask Mercedes 4 questions. We'll go back and forth, and these are just fun, goofy, off the wall, little miniature interview within an interview, yes or no, either or kind of questions. Just meant to have a little fun with digging into your psyche a little bit here at the tail end. So,
oh boy.
Oh yeah.
So Mercedes, I'll ease you in. Do you name your personal vehicles?
Yes, every single one of them except for our 2007 Toyota Yaris, which it's never had a name. I don't know why. But all the rest of them, yes.
Okay. Emily, you had quite the reaction to that question.
You kept trying to make me name the car, and I didn't want to. So every day I had to choose a different name for the dang car.
We have it in here. Oh, this is maybe not.
You made me write them down.
I was going to say, yes, I have notes in here. Oh my gosh, where are they? I need to flip in here and check it out, because I actually did write down daily names of the ID.4, because it was like Cinderella was the first one, because all of a sudden she shined into something beautiful, and we're like, wow, this is awesome. We're challenge accepted. Oh gosh, here it is. I'm taking too much time. Where is it? I lost it. Maybe can't find it. I don't know. There is a name in here somewhere of the first 7 days of competition and different names we gave it.
That's fantastic. Awesome. Fantastic. All right, so Emily, potentially you've been on the most epic road trip ever. What was your go-to snack on this road trip?
Well, guys, it's Cheez-Its.
Cheez-Its.
Okay.
And fun fact, again, we don't know each other very well, and she texted me the day I was leaving. She's like, hey, don't judge me. I bought a family-sized box of Cheez-Its. I'm like, oh, funny, I just bought the same thing. So Cheez-Its all week is really what we did.
Yes. That's fantastic. I'm so glad I asked.
We joked about it so much so that Nicole from Volkswagen actually bought us some mini bags of Cheez-Its because we were running out. And we're like, oh yeah, we should try to get them as a sponsor next year. So Cheez-Its, if you're listening.
Ate
them the whole week.
That's awesome. I love it.
Wow. That's how you know you were setting off on the right foot.
Oh,
right
man.
So,
heck yeah.
Just a little bit into my background, not to make this about me whatsoever, but I spent 12 years in grocery store analytics. and we would figure out things about you based on shopping behavior. And I was grouped into, as a single male, I was grouped into young parents because of my purchase frequency of goldfish. Like, they come in that giant carton. I would buy the giant carton for just me. And the rate and frequency at which I was buying that giant carton flagged me as having kids when
Oh my God, that's awesome.
at that point in my life was just me. So Cheez-Its are good too, but goldfish is my go-to cheesy snack. So
And there have been mentions of goldfish along that whole rally trip. So
That's awesome.
awesome.
all
That's
right,
awesome.
so I'm torn between the bottom two on this list, Matt. Okay, Mercedes. I'll go with the one I have highlighted. I'm trying to think of exactly how to phrase it. So you've driven many different vehicles, and when it comes to full-size trucks in particular, it seems like they are ditching the column shift in favor of anything else under the sun, whether it be push buttons or a dial or this or that or the other, or just intuitive nature. What is your go-to if you are in an automatic? Because I know how much you love and respect the manual. What is your preferred method of drive selection?
Oh gosh, that's a great loaded question. Honestly, the first thing that comes to mind, something that's easy.
Yeah.
I can't stand, or I dislike strongly getting into vehicles where I can't figure out how to put it into drive and go and like release a parking brake, because a lot of them are electronic nowadays.
Yep.
For me, we've got 3 right-hand drive Mitsubishis sitting outside. One of them a Mitsubishi Delica van, the other 2 Pajeros, and then an 07 Toyota Yaris. It's like, we're old school. I'm excited. I got power windows, right? So, I'm a little bit different than most of the other people, but you know what? It doesn't matter to me as long as it's intuitive and it's easy and it's easily understandable. Yeah. So I don't know if that's an answer. Maybe it's a non-answer, but it's just, My
wife is joining along with us on our car journey, and we had a photo shoot. She had to end up driving a Mercedes. I don't remember exactly which model it was. I had already left in the Jag F-Type, and I got a phone call from her saying, how do I get it into drive? And to your point,
she's not the first.
That is, yes, make it simple. Quit making you, yes. Oh my goodness.
So to tack onto that, I got in the car at the photo shoot to drive it around a little bit so we could get some B-roll. I couldn't figure out how to get it into gear. I had to ask her how to do it. So it was way too complicated.
That one either, so I need to rectify that.
Nothing against the F-Type. It's different manufacturers, right? I mean, I understand the technology and the difference, and you want to be cool, and you just you want to make it technologically different and awesome. I said different a couple times, but you know what I mean. I mean, it's alleviate driver and owner frustration, I guess, for me. And I mean, maybe I'm kind of a KISS type personality, keep it simple, stupid type of thing. But for me, there's a learning curve with every new vehicle for sure. But there's so much with technology and ECUs and just how many different computers to power everything. And you can't seem to fix a lot of stuff anymore. If things get broken, you're like, oh, well, you need to take it here for a $2,000 fix because it's some computer thing and it's not a cable you can replace. Or, I mean, I'm just, again, throwing weird things out out of my noggin. But for me, there's certain things that, make it holistic, make it real, and make it easy to drive.
Absolutely. To me. Well said.
Mm-hmm. Right there with you, for sure. Yeah.
Agreed.
All right. So this next one is, I'm going to combine a couple of these because I already know the answer to one of them, possibly 2 of them. So y'all were in an EV for a week in the dirt, which is crazy in its own right. But the 2 that I'm putting together is manual versus automatic and CVT versus EV. I'm not going to give you the easy out, Emily. I'm going to combine a couple here.
Great.
If you had to pick one, are you picking the automatic or a CVT?
For just daily life?
Yeah, for a daily driver, something you had to get in and drive.
So automatic versus stick shift?
Automatic versus CVT. So the continually
I'm not a
variable.
car girl. You're going to have to explain that one to me.
It's an automatic that never shifts.
Like the Volkswagen, how it just kind of continuously goes.
Yeah.
Continuous variable transmission.
Oh, learn something every day. I would pick the one that still shifts.
Okay.
I think I use that sound a lot to know what's happening with the car. And then also probably would get in a lot of trouble going real fast if it never made that sound. I'd be like, oh shoot, how did I get to go 100? It never made the sound.
120, what?
Yeah, I don't know what that is. So I'd probably stick just that sound. I remember sitting next to my mom in our old Honda Civic in the 80s. And that sound is like ingrained in my brain. So just that,
Absolutely.
That's a car to me.
Yeah.
That's a very intuitive answer for someone who is a self-proclaimed not car person.
Yes.
So.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Stick shifts are life, man.
That's
yes.
it. Absolutely.
I'm telling you, you can control the engine.
Yeah.
All right, Mercedes. I know that you have probably at this point in your career driven both, and you've already mentioned one of them, but are you Team Wrangler or are you Team Bronco?
Oh, I have not driven the Bronco. I'm probably the last person on the face of the planet that's a journalist that hasn't driven one. So if I may, right now, I would definitely say Wrangler, Rubicon, of course. I was fortunate enough during Easter Jeep Safari this last year to drive the Concepts. So I had the chance to drive Magneto, which is the all-electric
I remember
BEV.
seeing that you covered that. Yes.
So yeah, that was a stick shift. And I loved it. And I asked about it, and they said, you know what? They wanted to do a manual transmission EV, which I thought was fantastic. And they said they couldn't find one, so they had to buy it at a dealership in order for them to be able to use the carcass to make that car, which I thought was really interesting. But
that's crazy.
For me, it's got to be Rubicon because that's what I know. But I'm very excited for the opportunity to drive a Bronco because I need to, A, and B, they're pitting, each other against themselves, obviously, and of course you had Jeep and Bronco was like head to head at the Rebelle Rally. So need to drive the other one. So that's
all right, Ford, you heard it.
That's right.
Get Mercedes in a Bronco.
Ford, come on. Hey.
Absolutely. All right, so let's see. I'll go the other route. I'm going to save that one. Okay. This is kind of a softball question, but it's an important one. Okay. Sweet tea or unsweet tea?
Unsweet tea.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
He's the weirdo down here in the South.
I like it.
So we're the weirdos because we're the only two ladies that didn't drink fully leaded during the Rebelle.
Don't drink coffee. No, thank you.
I at least drink coffee, but it's decaf. So
yeah,
we're like weirdos. We're like, oh, peppermint tea. And everybody's like, what the hell is this? So
I will say my dad's from Louisiana, so I have a lot of that Cajun blood in me.
Okay.
But we don't drink the sweet tea. We just, no sugar.
No sugar.
Oh, my goodness.
Tea is God intended.
No, the spoon needs to stand up for all the sugar that is in there.
You know what are those guys?
I do like sugar, but
yes. All right, one last one for Mercedes.
Cory likes brown Kool-Aid. That's what Cory.
This one will be fun. Mercedes, last one. Favorite driving song or playlist genre? What puts you in the driving mood, or what must you crank up if you've got a long drive?
Oh, you guys are really going to hate me. A lot of the times I drive with my husband, Andy, and we'll drive, 12, 13, 14, 15 hours. Sometimes if we need to push to events or whatever, we don't play anything.
Okay.
Can I just jump in real quick here?
Absolutely.
I asked her what she was going to listen to on the 19-hour drive home, and she said, oh, I'm just going to talk into a recorder. I was like, what? I'm just going to talk into a recorder on the way home.
I did.
Gather your thoughts.
If I can preface that was to help me stay awake because I wanted to voice record myself for interviews and yada, yada, which I did kind of do that, maybe a little too much. And it was kind of expensive to transcribe, but that's just what I do.
Yeah.
But in my own self-defense with that, because I was by myself and not with my husband, most of the times we literally play nothing. We let the road talk to us. or just, we can just whatever it may be. But I did listen to, because it had Sirius XM. And again, we're old school rocking over here, so we don't have Sirius or any of those things. We don't have an opportunity to even do that in any of our vehicles. But I did listen to Utopia quite a bit. So I think it was like, 80s, like techno and trance and that type of stuff. So
Nice.
yeah, I gotta, I just aged myself, or, just basically said my age right there. But most of the times, honestly, it's like nothing. If it is, it's like, maybe give me some rock and roll or some good grunge or some, 80s. So.
All right.
Nice. All right. Last question, Emily. And I can't believe Cory hasn't picked this one out yet. As a self-proclaimed not car person, with all the new tech that is going on in vehicles now, do you prefer more tech or less tech when it comes to your daily driver?
I prefer less tech. We actually had this conversation, and I was saying I like air conditioning and automatic windows and the reverse camera for safety. Get the rest of it out of there. I want to be able to fix this thing. My dad always did everything, changed the oil and stuff, and now it's like I can't do any of it. It's all some computer thing, and I want it to go back, except for safety and air conditioning.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
Absolutely.
Well, go ahead.
Oh, I just said, I jokingly have said, like, I think probably 5 times every day during the rally, Emily, you know that exactly what I'm going to say, is we're seriously like twin sisters from another mother type of thing. Or like, I don't know how much exact, she's so exact like me on so many levels. And that's the answer that I would have given, is having less like technology. I mean, technology for safety, yes, but technology to the point where, yes, you can do certain things, but the opportunity for you to be able to wrench on your own vehicle. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, same type of answer. But yeah, so anyways, twins from another mother, or maybe twins from the same mother. I don't know.
Love it.
It was like an ongoing joke the whole entire time. I mean, every time that we talked more and more, we're like, oh my God, you like that? What? That's like random and weird and obscure, but you're like perfect. Like, what?
Yep.
So
Awesome.
it's kind of like, it comes full circle back to, Volkswagen, right? I mean, they love to build fun cars. They're fun, they're dynamic, they're different. And it's like, oh, that's so much like what we are. So much so.
Good fit.
Well, we thank you both so much for allowing us to dive into your psyche and to your experience at the 2021 Rebelle. I do feel like we've just barely scratched the surface. We could do multiple episodes with every participant. And yes, so we're just very incredibly grateful for you taking the time to come and share with us and our listeners just to share your story. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having us. It was super fun.
Thanks for having us on the show.
Do you want to let our listeners know exactly how and where to find you, and especially Mercedes doing all your journalism work and crankshaft culture and all that good stuff?
Emily, do you want to go first?
Well, sure. I'm on Instagram, DermieCat, DERMIE_KAT. And you really won't see any cars on there. It's a lot of cats and a lot of rain, but that's where I am. And Mercedes tags me and everything, so I'm sure you can find me.
All right.
And as far as myself, you can find me on Instagram at Mercedes, MERCEDES _Lilienthal, LILIENTHAL, or at Crankshaft Culture, which is much easier to say than my name.
Yes.
If you follow Crankshaft Culture, you will be able to find me pretty easily. I'm on Twitter at Writer with Grit, GRIT. And I will be, as a journalist, I will be writing different articles. I will be having an article that'll be published here soon with Forbes Wheels. So that'll be an online publication. And then later on in print with Tread magazine that I'm an editor at large of. There are multiple other outlets as well that will be in the future, podcasts, radio shows, things like that. The response has been absolutely insane in such a wonderful way about people wanting to know all about the ID.4, what's all about it, how's our journey been, and what's the vehicle capability. So fielding a lot of questions, a lot of DMs, and a lot of just inquiries about it. So we're excited to talk about it and be a part of its future.
Again, thank you so much for carving out time for us, and just looking forward to sharing this with our audience. Whew. We could have talked much longer.
Oh yeah,
and kept going. There's so much we didn't talk about. We could have spent hours on each day of the rally with them. The competition within the competition, so to speak, of the fact that they were driving an EV through terrain and in situations that particular vehicle wasn't necessarily designed to do, just takes it to a whole nother level. I've referenced my experience driving an EV long distances on the road that just far exceeds what I did and blows my mind, and just the mental grit, again, that had to go into this excursion for them is beyond me.
2,275 kilometers, which in American is about 1,400 miles that they covered in 7 days, which averages to be about 200 miles a day, which you think, oh, okay, 200 miles, that's no big deal. I could drive to Dallas and back, and that'd be 200 miles.
Right.
This is over
all kinds of terrain.
Like places you shouldn't drive, and they're taking an all-electric, all-stock, except for wheels and tires and a ginormous skid plate, electric vehicle.
Yeah, with 6-ish inches of ground clearance.
Yeah.
They were talking about chunking rocks and just the physical.
Oh, man.
Just that added element making up for, compensating for, adjusting for the vehicle that they were in, because there are many different classes.
Oh, yeah.
They did mention the other EV was a Rivian R1T, which is a mid-sized pickup truck. Did not have the same type of challenges.
Right.
It had its own, but just unbelievable.
Crazy.
I like how Mercedes phrased it in that she called Emily and said, "How crazy are you?" I remember you. How crazy are you? Because I've got a doozy for you, basically. And
what are you doing in 4 weeks?
Yeah. What would you do, Matt, if I called you?
I'm there.
Okay. Well,
you don't even have to finish asking. I'm there.
Would not stop you from complaining the whole way, but it would be a journey.
Would be. I wouldn't even care if it was in an EV.
Yeah. Okay.
I would jump on board all day long over that.
We need to find a rally for GT Garage Talk to participate in this. The more we talk to participants of the Rebelle and Dakar and Sue Mead, who's just done like it all, it just makes me jealous and makes me want to build this into that. So it is with your help, listening to us, sharing with your friends, sharing with your family, watching us on YouTube, review cars and act like idiots behind the wheel, and all that. We just want to have y'all live vicariously through us as we do just the craziest things. On my 1,200-mile road trip, I was congratulated multiple times and thanked for doing it, because that meant they didn't have to. I was doing all the painstaking work of driving through the night, trying to find that next charging station, so that we can get the data we need to share with others. So I'm all in on it. Yeah.
You're all in on the EV. I'm all in on the adventure part of it. Like,
I'm all in on all of it.
Point me in a direction and let's go. Yeah, that would be crazy.
We just want to hear from you, the gearheads that listen along. What have you thought of not only this week's episode talking about the Rebelle Rally, but we had 2 guests last week talking about their adventures through the Rebelle Rally. Let us know if you've got contacts in the automotive world that you want to share the story, or you have an interesting story that you want to share. You can hit us up at gtgaragetalk@gmail.com. Find us on our website, gtgaragetalk.com. There's a form there that you can fill out, because this podcast serves as a platform for people to tell their awesome, amazing, crazy, wonderful,
absolutely
automotive stories, and for us to dig into, like we've said many times tonight, your psyche, and just kind of learn you a little bit in the process, because that's what this is.
I will admit, I am super bummed after the last 2 conversations.
Yeah?
Yeah.
With?
I don't ever get to go on the Rebelle Rally.
It's
all women.
Yes, and just kudos and hats off. Just hearing the stories and the things that they put up with, and the fact that it is the longest distance U.S. based rally is. Yes, envious right there.
Definitely.
Paint me green. So, what's Kermit's song? We don't have the money for that.
No, we don't have money.
We
Not
thank
sponsored.
You, yes, we thank you so much for listening each and every week. As always, find us on social media at GT Garage Talk, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. You know it all. GTGarageTalk.com. And until next time, bye.